Hello, and the Coronacast comedy show will start in 2 minutes. I know what you're thinking. It's already started, but no, it hasn't. The jokes will start in 2 minutes. I think I got to make it very clear. This is me just warming you up, getting people over, getting people to sit down, getting people to get ready for the show. The show is going to start in 2 minutes. Now, let me make sure that it is broadcasting. If you hear me, holla. If you hear me, the show will start in 1 minute. So let me make sure that it is clear. Do you hear me loud and clear? Jurishi and others in the room? If it's your first time, this is a Corona show, Coronacast comedy show, a show where I, stand-up comedian with no live audience, even though there are now a few little gigs opening, I am still currently struggling to get an audience, doing the odd show here and then, a Zoom show. So instead, I entertain you, people of the internet, people on YouTube, people on Facebook, people on Twitch. Welcome to the Coronacast comedy show. Okay, the Coronacast comedy show is officially beginning right now. Before it gets started, let me let you know something new. So the Coronacast comedy show, which you're about to watch, is going to be free, but you've got a few days left before it changes. Starting on the 1st of October, there's going to be 10 free minutes, and then the next 20 free minutes will be available only to people who are Patreons. I had wanted to keep the Coronacast comedy show free forever, but you got to understand, I thought in March that I'd be doing this for 2 months. This is it's 6. This is going crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, I am running out of savings, so it's now going to be a Patreon format. You can become a Patreon at Daliso, patreon.com/Daliso Chaponda for as little as £1 a month. I am not Netflix. And either way, it's going to keep coming, and there's always going to be a 10-minute free joke section, but then the rest of the show will be Patreon only so that I can start earning something. I currently have 3 Patreons. Thank you so much, but I need a few more. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, enough waffle. Let's get started with today's episode, which is on the subject of politicians and lies. I'll say that again. It's on the subject of politicians and lies. Okay, so this is what today's episode's all going to be about. As always, I'm a man sitting in the kitchen telling jokes. If you're enjoying gags, please put some LOLs up there. Please put some comments. If you have questions, ask questions. Every section, I'm going to take a look at the chat. So the sections, for any of you who wants to know, is I'm going to talk about growing up in a political house. Then I'm going to talk about lies of politicians, how we see politicians, lies in society, how we are all liars, governance not being effective. And then finally, the show is going to end with lessons from Machiavelli from your life. Machiavelli was a philosopher who wrote a book called The Prince, which is similar to The Art of War, which tells you how to rise in power as a politician. Now, a lot of you aren't politicians, but I have gleaned and translated this book for you in ways that you can use it in your love life, so you are always winning and your partner is always losing. If that's not a reason to enjoy the Coronacast, who knows? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with section 1, which is where I talk about my qualifications, ladies and gentlemen, my qualifications for being a person to tell you about politics. I grew up in a political house. What do I mean by this? So my father was a diplomat. My father, when I was around 4 years old, joined the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and we were posted in lots of countries like Somalia, Kenya, Austria, Poland, etc., Thailand, and he was a diplomat working for the UN, dealing with governments, dealing with ambassadors, which often put me in some funny positions. Like, they used to have parties. A lot of diplomacy is actually done in parties. A lot of people don't realize this, but they will have over a few ambassadors, a few, politicians, a few members of the UN. They'll have drinks, they'll have steak, and they'll chat, and they'll discuss trade deals, and so on and so forth. Now, my role was when people came over to the house, they would bring little kids with them. I actually had a part in the diplomatic process because they would bring their kids, hand over the kids to Daliso, say, take care of the kids while the adults get drunk. I had to take care of the kids. It's a big responsibility, right? If I did something to one of the kids, it could cause an international incident. It could cause a war. I still to this day remember a case where there was a house party, all these diplomats having a drink, having some food. The kids who I'm taking care of them, one of them started to have an epileptic fit. Now, I was a kid. I did not know what epilepsy was. None of the kids knew what epilepsy was. All we saw was a kid start shaking and frothing. We lost our mind. We didn't know what was going on. We panicked. When I went to my dad, first thing he said to me is, what country? What country is the kid? If it's Korea, we got in serious trouble. But luckily it was Canada. We were fine. But ladies and gentlemen, it was a very interesting time growing up under the reign of politicians. My dad's a politician. My mom ended up working for the WHO and other things. So she also had a political mindset, was a political house. Political house in many ways, right? We used to have an annual vote to decide who was the mummy's boy, right? If my brothers were having a fight with me, the way that my dad would hold peace talks. Essentially, my dad would hold peace talks, and finally, every few months, we would have a referendum to decide whether we are going to KFC or McDonald's. You see, that there is a joke which I wrote this afternoon. You can tell that because I had to keep looking at the cards. I had to keep trying to think, if this was like an actual TV show, there would be a teleprompter which would remind me what I wrote this afternoon. But there were lots of interesting things about growing up in a diplomatic house. One of which was we had diplomatic immunity. I didn't know we had diplomatic immunity. I didn't understand what it was, but diplomatic immunity, things like we could walk right through customs when going into a country without being searched. It was like being white. And I didn't actually realize I had diplomatic immunity until I got over the age of 16 and my dad's diplomatic immunity no longer applied to me. And suddenly I was traveling as a normal Black person for the first time ever, being questioned and stopped and searched for everything. It was quite a rude awakening. I didn't understand. I thought they were being overzealous. And then I realized, oh, this is normal for everybody else. Strange times. Wish I could have known I was diplomatically immune when I was a little kid, but they didn't tell me because a child would abuse it, right? And finally, I will say one thing which was really fun when you're a little kid. One thing which was really fun when you're a little kid is we got the VIP treatment. So little things like my dad's now in the Malawi, a politician, and I remember landing in Malawi, and a little car will come to the plane, the VIP car. And you leave the plane first, sit down in the VIP car, and you get driven to a separate place and you get processed separately. It feels lovely, but it's not always good to be a VIP. It's great when you're coming into the country. It's great when you're trying to process a passport. I always thought being VIP was great, but then I remember going to a nightclub and being seated in the VIP area. The VIP area is shit. The party is in the normal area, right? The VIPs are just sitting, sipping champagne and talking, while in the normal area, people are grinding. There's no twerking in the VIP area, okay? The ambassador of Sweden is not twerking, right? If you want to have fun in a nightclub, you got to go to the normal area. One thing what they do, which is really condescending, is on the side of this was in Kenya, on the side of the VIP area, there's a bunch of girls dancing, trying to get into the VIP area. And it's so patriarchal. Once in a while, someone in the VIP area will say, yes, bring her in. And they open the little curtain and she's allowed through to the VIP area to try and bag a rich man or something like that. It's I don't really approve of this, but it was very interesting and surreal. Okay, so that was me growing up in a political house. Okay, before I get going to talking about the bad sides of diplomatic life, let me take a look at the comments. Okay, what have we got? What have we got here? Hello, hello, hello. Good to have here. And what is the panda doing? Unfortunately, it's very bad news. The panda is feeling suicidal and is trying to put a noose around his neck. And I'm trying to talk him down, I had to stop trying to talk him down to do the show. But after the show is over, I'm going to continue to tell him, don't give up. Yeah. Okay. Here you go. You love the show. Hello. Glad you love the show, Marsha. You're very, very welcome. Excellent. Please post the link. Please post the link for the Patreon. That is the link. That is the link right there. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Sarah Hall says, I'm not on Patreon and you're also low on funds. You can only watch the first 10 minutes from October the 1st. Actually, Sarah Hall, I will make you a special free Patreon because you sent me a free book. So I will arrange for you to be a free Patreon so that you can watch there. So anyone who cannot afford the show and wants to watch the whole show, send me a free book. So that's all good. Oh, you had hand surgery today. I hope you get some good comedy. Entirely right. Good. Let's see what's going on. Sorry you're late. Yes, my roommate was laughing at the panda joke. Good. Let's keep going, ladies and gentlemen, to talking about the bad sides of growing up in a political house. Our life was dangerous. Oh, dangerous. Dangerous things happen in my youth that would not happen in your youth, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of dangerous things happen. And just for what people know is from the first, this is sort of where I would go off and continue in Patreon because it's been around 10 minutes. And so you'll still get some comedy, just less of it than the rest of the people. But let's keep going. Dangerous life. Our life was dangerous. For example, when I was 11, Mr. Ouko, one of our family friends who lived down the street, was assassinated. Yeah, this was in Kenya. We had a family friend get assassinated. And you know how cheeky those people were? They said he committed suicide, but he was shot in the back of the head and dipped in acid. That's not how a person does a suicide, right? And here's the whole thing. It's like, you've got to understand, politics, particularly African politics, can be extremely dangerous. My dad has been bombed 3 times. Well, now, they're all very different. When he was in one country, he was sent a letter bomb, right? And thankfully, he was saved by my mother, who is a doctor. So my mother ran him out of the house when he was on fire, rolled him around in the snow. Thank heavens it happened in a snowing country. And it sort of called 911. So that was the first time, right? Then when he was in Namibia working for the UN, their office caught fire, was bombed. And then later in his political career in Malawi, his office was bombed or set fire. It's dangerous. Things happen, man. So that, I will say, is something which is not fun about growing up in a political house, because anything can happen. You know, whenever you have anxiety, everybody has anxiety about your parents. It's like, you worry about heart attacks, you worry about diabetes, you worried about your parents getting cancer or something. But if you have a political family, you also have to worry about assassins. You have to worry about coup d'etat. You have to worry about imprisonment. It's a whole other level of weird worries and weird situations which you end up in. Having to have a bodyguard at some points in my life. It's odd, man. So that was one odd thing, right? And then the other thing is I became a comedian. And oh my Lord, it is very hard to be a politician and have a comedian son, right? This is more just a frustration for my dad, because I made when his party was in power, I made fun of them all the time because I'm a comedian. I've got to make fun of who's in power. I got to tell you, some of my jokes got me written out of the will. Right, I can tell you for sure. Right, but right now, actually, his party has or is not in power anymore. There's a different party. MCP is now in power, so I have the opportunity to get myself back in the will if I'm making fun of them. But what you got to understand is, as a comedian, my dad never used to understand this. It's like, why aren't you supportive to me? Why are you making fun of me? And I was like, got to understand, I've got to make fun of everybody, or none of my jokes have teeth anymore. Right? And it's a weird thing in the UK. There's been a lot of discussion. Is comedy too left wing? No. Right now, conservatives in power. So that's who we make fun of. The moment that the Labour Party is in power, we will shred you. It's just funnier to make fun of the people in power. You gotta understand. And the other thing, which is slightly frustrating to my family, is that I am not political at all, and I have no interest in being political, and everybody knows me in Malawi, right? So they're like, but it's such an opportunity. Come on, at least give me an endorsement. And I'm like, I'm not giving nobody no endorsement. Like, come on, give me an endorsement. I'm like, hey, you never gave me a remote control car on my 12th birthday, so you don't get no endorsement. I'm just apolitical because that way I can make fun of everybody. Okay, let's take a look at the chat before we start talking about trust and why trust matters. Okay, exit. Let's see what you're doing. Here we go. I mean, that's how you do it when you want to be sure to have a successful suicide. No, Panda, don't kill yourself. Okay, let's see. What else have we got here? Sorry, my family have been through so much. You have no idea how much. There have been so many stories, and there's things which I can't talk about. Like, if you really want to know how crazy it is, there's a show called Blah Blah Blacklist I put on YouTube. If you go to part two and part 3 of Blah Blah Blacklist, I think actually it's just part 3, talks about things like conversations with spies and things. Trust me, my life's like James Bond sometimes. Okay, let's see. It's good that you make fun of everybody. I'm sure you enjoy it, and I think that's what comedy is meant to do it. Oh, Philip Mulungi is Daliso's bodyguard. Nabil Abdul Rashid's in the house, the golden buzzer from this year's BGT. Everybody vote for him. And also, he's always trolling me, so you also need to go troll his account, but vote for him, ladies and gentlemen. Very good to have you in the house, Nabil. Okay, let's keep going. Actually, I've not spoken about this. I want to do like an interview with Nabil, one of the Coronacast episodes, one of the days, maybe this week, or maybe after his semifinal airs. I'm not sure when, but we'll definitely do an interview with you, and we can trade golden buzzer stories and find out whose haters are worse. Okay, let's move on to the next point, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on to let's see, banners. Why does trust matter now, right? This is a time where it's quite stressful, right? Because normally it doesn't really matter that much if you don't trust your politicians, right? In fact, whenever people say politicians lie, people kind of expect politicians to lie, right? You don't vote for people because they're truthful. You vote for them because you like them. Like, people always are like, why does lying not ruin a political career? Because I don't think anyone's voting for their honesty, right? There's so many traits which you evaluate. Like, I remember dating someone who was a huge liar, right? She used to lie all the time. And some people were like, oh, you can't be with a liar. No, but she lied all the time. But on the flip side, she was very kinky, right? She was very loving. She clearly loved me. She just lied for other reasons. You know what I mean? So lying is just one of many traits, but it's a very different year right now. It's a year when trust matters because of things like COVID. When you are dealing with strange times, you've got to trust your government, because your government is asking you to do strange things and asking you to put up with strange rules, to put up with limits to your civil liberties. And it is a problem that countries right now, some countries have governments they mistrust. In the UK, Boris Johnson, people don't necessarily trust him because in the Brexit struggle directly before the COVID struggle, there were a lot of lies told, right? And so it's like, why should we trust you about this? Trust matters right now. And one of the few people who people seem to trust is Jacinda Ardern, who is Prime Minister in New Zealand. And whenever I watch her on television, it pisses me off because she's so trustworthy and she's so reasonable. And she seems to know what she's doing. I don't know if she's just faking, but she seems like she knows what she's doing. And can we trade? Can we do a wife swap show just for 1 week? But the other thing is that people are naive about politics. I don't know why people are so naive about politics. Maybe it's because I grew up surrounded by politicians, but it's not ever fair or true. People want fairness and truth. For example, in America right now, there is some very unfair maneuvering going on where people say, but hey, wait, when Obama was in power, he tried to make nominate someone for the Supreme Court and he was blocked. And now Trump's trying to do the same thing and maybe he won't be blocked. You got to understand, politicians will get away with as much as they can. Right? It's about power. It's not about fairness. It's about getting away with as much as they can. I keep going back to the relationship analogy, but it's the same thing, right? In the bedroom, as a man, you'll try to get away with as much as you can, right? And if you are with the partner who's going to stop you at missionary and doggy style, you're happy with that. But if you're with someone who lets you, bring in another partner, who lets you flip them over, you're going to do it. You're going to get away with as much as you can. Only once, personally. Okay, let's keep going, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, God. But let's say this, okay? Despite the fact that there's a lot of deception, despite the fact there's a lot of lying, politicians are not all the same, right? You often hear people saying, oh, they're all the same. Oh, they're all just as bad. And I think this is lazy. This is lazy and it is apathetic. It takes you out of having the responsibility to vote, takes you out of the responsibility of finding out what their differences are. Even if you think they are all bad, right? Somebody is always worse. And some policies will always be worse. Give you a perfect example. When it comes to the Americans, I refer to the Americans a lot because their elections are in the paper now a lot, right? I remember talking to someone that was like, hey, come on. Obama was bombing people too. Bush was bombing people too. They're all the same. But you got to understand, that's part of the brand. That's part of the America brand. They can't really be America if they're not bombing brown people, right? That's part of the brand. So in both cases, the bombing was a constant. There was always going to be the bombing. But it's other things that they're different on that have huge ripples on the world right now, right? And will have huge ripples on the world to come. They will. Oh, I lost a bunch of people because I brought up America. I apologize, Americans. But I will say one of the hardest things about being a politician is that you don't actually know for many years to come. You don't actually know the actual effect of most of the things you do. I remember talking to my father about this. He was talking about how frustrating it was because it's probably 5 years after you're in power that you actually find out the ripple effects of a thing which you did, right? It's like you make this treaty with a country or you make a trade deal and it only really starts to affect your country after you're long gone. It's like, imagine I told jokes where I tell you the punchline now, you laugh in 3 years, right? That's essentially their job. And I think I need too much instant gratification to ever do that, right? So I always think that you've got to look at them. You've got to compare them. You can't actually just say they're all the same because they're not the same. There are always some who are worse. And you need to always vote for the one who's the least bad in your opinion. Okay, let's see what's going. Daliso is the goalkeeper for the Malawi football team. Wow, yes, I'm catching balls. Oh, hello. Sean A says, hi, Nabil, voted for you Yes, please, Daliso. That would be amazing. A pay-per-view event, possibly. Possibly, I need to make it a pay-per-view event to afford Nabil's new high prices. This is maybe what we need to do. Let's see. That the answer to that, Juan Villarreal, is complicated. It's always complicated when it comes to me. Okay, excellent. Pissed you off by being nice. My sadistic side is showing, Daliso. I am definitely sadistic. And Sean A says that's when male selective hearing comes in handy. You can forget the safe word. You joke, Sean A, but safe words are not anything to be joked about, right? If you hear someone's safe word, you have to stop, okay? You have to stop. Mine is pumpkins, okay? Pumpkins. Keep that in mind. Pumpkins. Excellent. Let's keep going, ladies and gentlemen, and let's start talking about lies. Lies. It's not just politicians who lie. Lies are part of society's DNA. We live in a dishonest culture. People lie about their face. They put on makeup, right? People lie about how good looking they are. People lie about their marketing. We get marketed to. Marketing is lying, right? And what's even funnier is how complicated lying actually is, how complicated marketing is. Do you know that having a scandal is actually often good for your brand? So if you are a brand and you accidentally say something racist, right? You're a brand, you say something racist, you get bombarded on Twitter, you get people saying these racist bastards, these racists. Actually good for you. It actually raises your sales. So you've got a lot of brands purposefully trying to stir up things by saying something racist, something sexist, by making an ad which offends people. But it's risky because it's a tightrope. There's a point where you snap over the increased sales to people boycotting you, right? You're always going to get some people boycotting you. But I wonder if there's a chart somewhere where they've got like, okay, good for sales, good for sales, good for sales. No, boycott, right? So it's a risk which a lot of companies, a lot of brands have done, and it's weird. This is what you've got to understand. What you're seeing is not always the truth. Maybe Trump's clever, right? People always think, oh, he says these buffoonery. Maybe he pretends to be clever because politics is manipulating the people who are watching. The same way that marketing is trying to get you to buy stuff, propaganda is trying to get people to believe stuff, and you do that however you want. And sometimes the best game you can play is by playing an idiot. Do you remember George Bush? We all said George Bush was an idiot because he was always saying idiotic things. And I saw an interview with him 2 years ago. Didn't sound like an idiot. And I was like, what happened to the idiocy? Was the idiocy just something useful when you were in power? What you see is not necessarily true. But also on the flip side, not every crazy crackpot thing. So sometimes we lie, but not necessarily to the conspiracy level that you read about. And then even when you read about the conspiracies, maybe we came up with the conspiracies to get you to vote for us. It's all very complicated. You never know what's going on. Goebbels, who was a Nazi propagandist, wrote about how to win elections, how to manipulate people to vote for you. These are some of the things which he suggested. And you tell me if this sounds familiar to the behavior of any politicians you've read about or you know of, okay? Never allow the public to cool off. Right? So you get your public scared by something, you get them riled up about something, and you never let them calm down. You make them think, if it's immigrants, the immigrants are coming, the immigrants are coming, the immigrants are coming. Never even stop and say, no, we've had a good month, the immigrants have calmed down. No. Always keep them scared, always keep them agitated, right? Never concede anything good inside your opponent. Right? Don't even say my opponent is friendly or is lovely. Your opponent is the demon, right? Never concede one good thing about your enemy, okay? Blame one enemy at a time for everything that goes wrong. right? So anything that goes wrong while you're in power, pick an enemy and say it's them. Say it's them. Say it's them. Say it's them. And what you need to do is you need like maybe 2 or 3 options, like have the WHO on one end, have an ex-president on one end, and then you just blame everything that goes wrong again and again and again on them, right? And then people will always believe a big lie over a small lie and keep repeating the lie frequently enough, and they will believe it. Shocking. But oddly, we are all liars, right? I think we're all liars, right? We all lie. And it's not always a bad thing. Politeness is often a lie. If somebody's talking and is boring you, it's not necessarily polite to be like, you're bloody boring. Get the hell away from me. Instead, we'll say, I've got to go. I've got a meeting, or I've got a Zoom call with my brother, right? Something like that is a harmless lie. We often lie. A lot of what politicians do, we all do on a smaller level, right? In fact, people who are pure id, compulsive people who don't lie, always fascinate me. You know what I mean? They always fascinate me. Do you know what I'm talking about? The kind of people who yell out their opinion. No matter what, they're in a fight, they yell out the middle, what the hell's wrong? They swear, they yell. I always am fascinated by these people because I'm like, did you not learn that you don't have to say every thought in your mind? Didn't you learn how to pretend? People who are like, oh, I can't be around him, I hate him. I'm like, can't you pretend you like him? Don't you know that's how all of us have a life? That's how all of us have a career? Fascinating. But what I actually think, though, is with all the lies which are going around, right, and all the ways that people lie, I have read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, right? This is a famous book which gives you advice about how to take down your enemies, how to defeat your enemies. And I wanted to get some lessons out that could be useful for people in relationships which are difficult, right? But I realized The Art of War by Sun Tzu is a little too harsh. So instead, I looked at Machiavelli, and Machiavelli had a book called The Prince. And I've come up with a few things which will be useful in your relationships. Let me take a final look at the chat, and then I will give you a few lessons from Machiavelli for your life. Okay, let's start. How are we doing? Your safe word is get off me, you dirty bitch. I think that would work. But usually you need a short word. You need a shorter word because sometimes, in the middle of whipping or something like that, someone saying, get off me, you dirty bitch. Oh, sorry. Might be seen as, oh, they're just playing along. So it's usually, I'm not that I've ever used one, but usually you need to pick something that you would not normally be saying in a role-playing situation. And you might say, get off me, you dirty bitch. But you would not say randomly pumpkin or popcorn and flowers. You know what I mean? It needs to be something very unsuspecting, Daniel Pitts. That's my advice to you. Okay, here we go. Sean A says Trump is a brilliant businessman. You'll leave it at that. It may there's an article about how much money his businesses were losing over the last few years. So you may need to reconsider that. But I see what you're saying. He plays the game. He plays a game. And a lot of people do it. Our world is based on lies, Stanley Pitts. I agree with you. Excellent. Sarah Hall says, you want to know why Trump's face is so orange? Sarah Stanley says, it's makeup and fake tan. That sounds real. Wild lies for politeness. Very true. And you're saying, screw this, you aren't biting your tongue. Oxen. Oh, by the way, your daughter had an operation today. This was a great way to wind down and funny as always. You're very welcome, Sean A. So let us finish and with a final few lessons for you, few lessons of how you can learn from Machiavelli and use his lessons in your love life. This is one thing from Machiavelli. I quote, if one is on the spot, disorders are seen as they spring up, and one can quickly remedy them. But if one is not at hand, they're heard of only when they are great, and then one can no longer remedy them. So he's talking about seizing the action and always being present. Right now, this is useful for crisis management, but it's also useful in responding to STDs. Okay? Responding to STDs. Go see the doctor immediately. You'll get a few spots, right? You feel a little itch or a little burn. Go immediately. Don't wait until there's some fungus covering your genitals. Go as quickly as possible. Do not wait until you are gangrenous blob. From Machiavelli to you. Number two lesson from Machiavelli's The Prince. I quote, "He who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined, because that predominancy has been brought about by astuteness or else by force, and both are distrusted by him who has been raised by power." AKA, do not introduce your girlfriend to your sexy mate, right? Do not introduce your girlfriend to your sexy mate. In fact, do not have sexy mates. You need to be your sexiest mate, right? Do not introduce your own competition into the situation. Next one, I quote from Machiavelli, "A wise man always ought to follow the paths beaten by great men and to imitate those who have been supreme, so that if his ability does not equal theirs, at least it will savor of it." Simple advice from Machiavelli. If you are bad in bed, have a threesome with someone who is good in bed, right? And have the lights off. Have it dark. So every time something happens to please your girlfriend, it's dark. You're like, that was me. Take the credit. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this bit of advice from Machiavelli: a wise prince ought to observe some such rules and never in peaceful times stand idle, but increase his resources with industry in such a way that may be available to him in adversity, so that if fortune changes, it may find him prepared to resist her blows. Okay? So, very lots of words, but what it really means is when you and your partner are at peace, when you're not fighting, right? Don't be idle. This is time to plot. This is time to see what her weaknesses are. This is the time to see what her mistakes are. Also, make her feel guilty for stuff that doesn't bother you, because you may need that guilt trip later. Never say it's okay. Never say it's okay. Even if you feel okay, be strong, but act like you're sensitive and falling apart, right? Every time she says something which you're not bothered, act like you're bothered. Guilt is very useful. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Coronacast comedy show. I will say that even though this was a full free episode and not yet the one which is going to be happening in 2 phases, ladies and gentlemen, this Coronacast comedy show, you can become a Patreon at patreon.com/Daliso Chaponda, and starting on the 1st, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but starting from the 1st, I think as a way to try and start generating a bit of income from the Coronacast, I'm going to do the first 10 minutes free. And then from then, you can become a Patreon for as little as £1. And you can watch the rest. The idea is I need 1,000 fans, each giving me £1. Okay. As opposed to trying to get that from one person. This has been fabulous. I've been Daliso Chaponda. Have a very lovely evening. I've been Daliso Chaponda. See you tomorrow.